Hello, good evening and a very warm welcome to the Hot Seat. This evening my guest is Mr. Basil Fernando, the Director of the Asian Human Rights Commission, an organization based in Hong Kong. Good evening, Mr. Fernando. And,
good evening.
Welcome to the Hot Seat.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Fernando, you obviously from your base in Hong Kong, you observe the region.
Yes.
And how are your observations on the land of your birth, Sri Lanka?
Well, you see, when you get a comparative perspective, in my organization we work on 11 countries.
Mm-hmm.
So we see certain places which succeeded beyond us, which are in a far better position.
Outside in Sri Lanka?
From outside Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
When we see certain countries like Hong Kong, South Korea, which has prospered and also orderly and peaceful relatively,
mm-hmm.
much more than. And then also we see places which have really gone down.
Mm-hmm.
For example, Cambodia,
mm-hmm.
there was a Pol Pot and the whole genocide, virtually a genocide.
Mm-hmm.
That is 1 million people out of 7 million people were killed.
Yeah.
And the entire institutional setup was changed.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get Burma.
Yeah.
From 1962 the entire institutional structure was lost and now trying to recover very slowly.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see, what we see is, here is one country which could have gone very far and which has lost quite a bit of what it was gaining.
Mm-hmm.
The ultimate test what I have seen comparatively is how strong are your basic institutions which keep order and which keep balances justice.
And what are those institutions? What would you say they were?
They are basically the police. One of the things that we don't realize here.
Yeah.
Well functioning police, what contribution it makes to a society.
Right.
Secondly, the prosecutors department, which people trust.
Right.
People know if there is crime, these people know how to fight it.
So the AG's department.
AG's department.
Yeah.
Third is the judiciary, which is not only independent, but also has capacity.
Right.
The fourth, and for me, what I have seen most important is the institution that controls corruption. Bribery here, the Commission Against Bribery and Corruption.
Yeah.
Places where there had been success is where there have been a great success. First of all, in the control of corruption by use of new methodologies.
Right.
The kind of commission that we have so far, the legal structure belongs to some few number of decades back.
Right.
This kind of commissions no longer, are regarded as credible.
I see.
There are professional commission. The commission is entirely professional.
Right.
People are selected from the beginning for that job. You don't get it from the police.
And so they don't get changed in between changes of government and so on?
There's no question about government.
Right.
There's no question of changing of government.
Right.
But even between institutions.
Oh, I see.
See, for example, you work for the police for several years and you come here. It's not like that. Your profession is here. You have promotions, all the possibilities, or you get sacked.
Right.
If you don't do your job.
Right.
So it's on the one hand they are well looked after, but they are well supervised, at the same time trained. But what is most important is these institutions spend more money on educating people than investigating people.
Right.
But by this you create the kind of faith in the people. If something goes wrong, we can resort to a certain institutions. They are relatively, we are sure that they will do their job.
Right.
If you ask an average person from Hong Kong, what is the institution they trust most? It is the judiciary.
Right.
It's almost considered sacred. Because they have earned it. And also the government has given it. Nobody interferes with the judiciary. They know that if they try, they are trying at the wrong place. And they know, a business community that does business on a certain higher level realize that stability is the basis of their, earnings, the wealth. So a business community supports the order, and they are very keen to see that also there is a higher level for the poor and others, because it is the way you avoid unrest. So you orderliness of a society. Now this is where we have, I believe, in comparatively we have lost.
Right.
That our institutions became weaker. The definition, the technical definition of disorder is when the institutions that are supposed to protect your basic rights gets weak. As a result, you cannot carry on the normal business.
Right.
Now that is what has happened to our country, partly because we did not allocate them with adequate funding from the very start.
On that note, we'll take a short break and come back and discuss more on human rights and constitution even with Mr. Fernando from the Asian Human Rights Commission. Hello, good evening and welcome back to the hot seat. We're joined by Basil Fernando, a director at the Asian Human Rights Commission based in Hong Kong. Mr. Fernando, you were saying that the four components, very essential, the police, the judiciary, the Attorney General's Department, and of course the Bribery Commission, must be well founded and given the independence to act, and then everything else will fall in place, do you think?
The law then functions.
Right.
See, it's not that these institutions have any magic.
No.
See, our society is built on the rule of law. If the rule of law is functional, then other things, every other sector, the banks, the private sector, the public sector, they all get control through the law. And everything have enormous freedom, but within the framework that they observe the law.
Right.
You make any amount of money, but you pay your taxes. And when you pay your taxes, the rest of the system, gets funded to do the other things. And people do willingly pay their taxes because when they earn enough. If you get your salary, enough salary for you to exist, you don't grudge your tax because in return you get the services you need. Right. For example, if you have a young child, and if you have, they say a girl who goes to university and that age, and you want her to live safe, and come back after her work, whatever the time, and you know that this kind of service can only be provided by the law enforcement agencies. So whatever the government spend on the law enforcement agencies, people don't grudge because they get much in return. See, for example, here, I meet my friends. They say, after 6, if you have a girl of 18 or 20 or, that age, we go to the road if she doesn't come at 6 o'clock.
Yes.
Now, this is completely an abnormal situation because that is an expression that we don't trust our system. And we don't trust our system simply because it doesn't function.
Right. Some people say that the root cause of corruption is the lack of laws that govern the funding of politicians. What do you say to that?
Well, funding of politician is also covered by the law of corruption. See, the law of corruption is wider than the law of bribery.
Right.
So, a functioning political system, a party system, how it gets its money, they are accountable as much as anybody else. Right. You cannot say, my party funds are out of the legal observation. So the same law that applies to a private individual applies to political parties. So therefore there is transparency of the amount of money that comes in.
Right.
You know, very recently there was a certain politician from here. We brought him to one conference.
Yeah.
When he's coming back, he saw some very small advertisements for a election. So he looked at me and asked, "Is this all the advertising that goes on in this place?" I said, "Yes, this is all." He said, "In that case, I could have saved 70 million."
Oh, really? Okay.
So you see the contrast.
Right.
Because an average election does not attract any kind of a huge fanfare.
Right.
It is just an ordinary day of like any other day. I'm a permanent resident. I have a right to vote. So I have gone for voting several times, and nobody is there to canvass or anything like that. Very often it's about 40% of the people who even vote.
I see.
See, the system doesn't live on creating all the time kind of emotion.
Right.
You know, for this issue, that issue and everything, you turn things into emotion. Why? Because when a legal system doesn't function, you must get things by pressure.
Right.
So here, I believe that this goes back to the way the 1931, the adult franchise came to a country which has not yet established a solid foundation of rule of law. Had it come together, we would have been as much a strong democracy as anybody else. So everybody used the adult franchise for petty purposes.
Right.
See, I want to get my vote, so I appeal to the basis instinct. I'm this race, you vote for me.
Yeah.
Other man says, I'm this race, you vote for me. So you don't ask, what does my nation need?
Right.
What is it what we need for the next stage of development? How do I develop our schools to an extent that our children will get a better education? So what is the issue on which, we can build a better health system? These are not the issues. Emotionally, what you can work people up on emotion, and we create an irrational system, irrational way of life.
So you sound very much like what you're saying sounds very much like what President Kennedy once said: "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." Is that what you're really saying?
Yeah, because your country has arranged everything to do everything for you.
Yeah.
So now do your part.
Right.
That is what he was saying.
Right.
Here you have a good system to work.
Yeah.
But if it fails because of you.
Right.
In other words, he was telling the people, speak.
Yeah.
Organize. And show, if something goes wrong, show your anger. But within the framework of law. Within negotiable situation. So do your duty by being a good citizen. Citizen with a conscience. Citizens with informed mind. That is what he was telling. He was not just telling patting their back and say, do as hard work as possible.
On that note, we'll take another break. I will come right back and discuss matters like the right to information with Mr. Basil Fernando, Director of the Asian Human Rights Commission in Hong Kong. Welcome back to the hot seat, and we're joined here by Mr. Basil Fernando, a Director at the Asian Human Rights Commission. Mr. Fernando, we've spoken about the four pillars, if you like, for success. In Sri Lanka, we have a government in place that promised us a new governance, a good governance, and we now have a very open, no fear sort of psychosis ambience, a free ambience as journalists to practice our trade. It's come a long way since the time when Sri Lanka was the fourth most dangerous place in the world. But does that give the right to politicians to be openly critical and virtually threaten or coerce the media into their line of thinking just because they've opened up They've thrown the shackles of the fear away and created a different ambience. Does that give them any credit to lecture the media, as our Prime Minister has been doing for the last 2 or 3 weeks?
See, I agree with you completely that the breaking of the fear psychosis and bringing the country from where we were is one of the great achievements of the people of this country. Those who broke the fear were those people who are suffering at the bottom and who are fighting back, and you gave the politicians the confidence. You come out, we will support you. So if the politician misunderstand this and saying, we gave you freedom, I think they are misreading the political, how things happen in politics. So the people opened up and brought them to positions saying that now let's work for a different type of country.
Right.
Now the politicians should not try once again to bring people, put the people back into that old rut again.
Yeah.
The people, the politician, the great politician is one who listens to sometimes very harsh criticism, sometimes even very unfair criticism. The society is not all equal, even.
Yeah.
But wisdom comes by when many people speak, some with knowledge, some ignorant, some halfway, but everybody speaks. And in that you get the kind of thing that is wiser for you to do. A politician is somebody who's, seeks wisdom.
Right.
And wisdom, he knows, doesn't come from his birth or his, genes. It comes from societal discourse.
Right.
Better the discourse, better he will be. And therefore, and the people are expecting, okay, now we have this freedom, but many things have not changed yet. There is a huge amount of problems that are there. So if you promise good governance, make sure that these institutions can function well so that people can be free. What is the ultimate aim of all this? To assure the freedom of people. And that the politician should not interfere. He can discourse, he can put his position. And he can be, he has all the politicians, Prime Minister and everybody, has all the platform they need.
Yeah.
So they have avenues by which they can put their point of view.
Right.
Other people can interact their point of view. They may be doing a lot of things which are wrong.
Yeah.
So the people also may be sometimes wrong. It doesn't mean that people are always right. But keep the discourse warm. Don't make people afraid to talk. Because you will be, destroying your own chances of achieving the things that you promised to achieve. Good governance is about, enforcing good laws effectively and getting people to do the work to run this country. The economy is to be run by the people.
Yes.
Every other thing has to be run by the people. So the creating that atmosphere, there should not be any attempt to frighten people or to intimidate people. If I say this, I'll get a lecture tomorrow.
You're an attorney at law. Sri Lanka's constitution is written and there is provision for amendment. And there have been 19 amendments. Why is there a need now, in that case, do you think, for a new constitution, as the Prime Minister is saying?
It is very simple. We lost a democratic constitution in 1972. We lost, and it was reinforced many times by 1978 constitution. So we are a nation without a democratic constitution. But fortunately, there are certain traditions and certain things which, but there is nothing so damaging to a democratic nation than to stifle the independence of judiciary.
Right.
1972 constitution took away the judicial review. Judicial review is when the judges look at laws and see whether these are legal or illegal. Take one example. We had an emergency law.
Yeah.
We gave the power to an officer not less in rank than ASP to authorize disposal of bodies. This in the early 80s. Which means you take away from the magistrate's power to examine suspicious deaths. The result is somebody can be killed and buried. And we know this is a period of large scale disappearances. So it was brought by law. Now this should have been stopped by the judiciary. Had the judiciary that power, had they examined earlier, you know, there was a law relating to loudspeakers. They said that, you know, the emergency law tried to say that, you know, you need to get permission to do that. The Supreme Court said no. You cannot ask people to get permission. All that we can ask is that you inform them. You inform the police about your meeting.
Right.
You don't have to get...
So you give notice.
Notice, not to get permission. So that is at that point the Supreme Court intervened. But latter years we find after 72 that power is taken away.
So why is there a need then to have a new constitution?
Simply because, you know, when the separation of powers is taken away and the kind of the so-called constitution is based on concentration of power.
Right.
How to separate the power without creating a new framework.
Right. That's what we need to work towards.
That's absolutely essential.
Right.
Because otherwise, you know, we unfortunately we have created by law our chaos.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Fernando, for being in the hot seat.
Thank you very much.
I look forward to welcoming you in on our network the next time you're in Sri Lanka. Thank you for watching the hot seat. Join us same time, same place next week on Wednesdays at 9:30.